I'd like to thank everyone once again for coming out and listening to today's very important debate. I'd like to first start off with why the opposition, the oddities in the opposition's arguments against our position today, and I'll move on to say why our position will actually help society in the long run. Before starting with these two major issues, I'd like to define what a non-violent offense is. Someone who's a non-violent offender is someone who is only charged for drug possession. So with that definition out of the way, I would like to first start off by exposing some oddities in the opposition's argument and saying why the government has ensured that their grievances have been covered in our plan. The opposition stated that when we decide to pardon all of these nonviolent criminals, it would overload the governmental justice system. Every criminal with marijuana-related charges would have to be looked up to see if it was violent or not violent, and whether they deserve a pardon or not. But in this case, the ends justify the means. What the government is going for is back to our original contentions that the Prime Minister brought up, that by pardoning these criminals, they will be more productive in society and allow for more tax money. And it will help take care of our problem of overcrowding in our prisons, thus freeing up more space for those who are violent offenders that might commit crimes like murder, rape, etc. So in this case, the ends justify the means. Furthermore, with our improvement of technology and different computer systems, it is now easier than ever to ensure the smoothness of the process by being able to look up every marijuana offender and sort them whether they are violent or nonviolent according to the definition I brought up at the beginning of the speech. Therefore, the ends justify the means in this case. The opposition also brought up that there's an inequality, whereas we're letting people out early versus we're letting people out late, and that they should serve their full time and burden. But in this case, we as a society have found that these crimes are not necessarily as heinous as what they used to be. And by pardoning these individuals who are non-violent and have only been charged for drug possession, we are seeing more benefits, as what the Prime Minister brought up in his opening speech. So to move on, what are the benefits that have been brought up? Well, the Prime Minister brought up that crime breeds crime. With criminals being in the system, they learn more crime-related techniques, etc. What the opposition has said is that why let these people who've been in jail be let out when they've learned all these horrendous things? But the thing is here is we're trying to take care of a problem before it starts. The more time a criminal has in prison, the more time that they have to pick up these undesirable traits. If we let out these nonviolent offenders now, there's less time for them to develop those undesirable traits. And therefore, we are taking care of a problem before it starts. The opposition also brought up that if we release one criminal, what says they're going to be productive in society? I wanted to bring up that these were non-violent offenders, picked up just for drug possession. And by being let out into society, there is more tax revenue that can be generated from these valuable members of society working, paying taxes, and contributing to our economy. Therefore, by letting out these nonviolent offenders, we are ensuring a more productive society and having more of a tax base where we can fund programs, programs such as better jails, etc. Moving back to the opponent's, the opponent's problem with us letting out marijuana offenders, especially without people serving their full terms, and their complaint that it's going to, not allow for our safety. It is very important to realize here that the ends are justifying the means in this case. By pardoning all those nonviolent marijuana offenders, we are preventing overcrowding in our prisons and ensuring that we have more space for those who are violent, therefore getting more violent offenders off the streets. By letting nonviolent marijuana offenders out, they are contributing to society being more productive, creating more taxes and a revenue base where we can use that money to put more violent offenders into jail. Therefore, in this case, the ends justify the means. even though the opposition is bringing up that it might be overly complex to get everyone out of prison and figure out who's violent and who's not violent and all of this, the computer systems are there, the resources are there in our government. We can make sure that all the nonviolent marijuana offenders are let out of jail, and ensuring that we have a productive economic base and that we are not overcrowded. The opposition also brought up that that it was a law in the first place. It's a mistake or being hypocritical by letting these prisoners out. But society changes over time, and what we need to realize is now we believe that the crime isn't as heinous as what it used to, and the government is using its discretion to pardon the non-violent offenders. Because of this, we think that the ends will justify the means, whereas we will raise more tax revenue, we will get rid of our current overcrowding problem, we'll have more space. Plus, we will ensure that the criminals that might stay in jail, if we do not create this action, do not pick up more violent habits while in a prison system that will harm society when they do get out. Therefore, we are taking care of a problem before it even starts by ensuring that we take the population that is non-violent out of the prisons before they pick up these bad habits and further harm society. I think the government's main point today is what we are proposing to do, the ends will justify the means. While the opposition does have valid arguments against what we are doing, I have shown to you through my speech, and we will continue to show through our speeches, that the ends are justifying the means, and that the government today has taken the better position on this tough issue. So to ensure that our prisons are not overcrowded, and to ensure that we have a productive taxpayer base, and that criminals in jail are not picking up more bad habits that when they are released will make society even worse, we need to ensure that the government can and will pardon all non-violent marijuana offenders for the good of the society. The ends will justify the means. Regardless of how hard the opposition may think to weed out who's violent and who's not violent, etc., when that is done, when that is said and done, even the tax base that these former criminals will produce will help offset those costs that the opposition might see in creating, weeding out offenders. So for this reason, I believe, and the government believes, that we should pardon nonviolent marijuana offenders. Thank you.